All right, I'm gonna get this started here in just a second. Um, Asking my tech overlords if they can hear me and see me okay. All right, well, it's just after the 12 o'clock hours, so we'll dive right in. But good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking the time out of your lunch break to be here with us today and to take part in this fun new energy as we kick off our first ever Wellness Wednesday, which is brought to you by Minneapolis.St.Paul magazine and our friends at Northwestern Health Sciences University. I would be remiss to not wish you a happy St. Patty's Day. We're going green today for multiple reasons. I guess one of the advantages of being in quarantine is that nobody can pinch you, right? Anyways, I'm full of dad jokes, and I'm also Jamie Korf. I am a deputy editor for Minneapolis.St.Paul magazine, and I've worked closely with many of the university's experts since the birth of our Be Well partnership, which was about three and a half years ago. Wellness Wednesdays is really, it's a series where I'll be shoulder to shoulder, screen to screen with some of the big time influencers in the integrative health realm. And the cadence of the series is we meet the third Wednesday of every month. So the premise is that we'll all virtually be students together, kind of under the tutelage of these experts. We provide the brain food, you guys eat your lunch food. Can't go wrong with that. It's kind of a win-win. But these guys, Northwestern Health Sciences University, they've been the pioneers of integrative health education way before it was cool. For those of you who may not be familiar with the name, they're based out of Bloomington, and they are the leading chiropractic school in the entire region, the Midwest. But they're so much more than a chiropractic school. They also teach, acupuncture, cupping, Chinese medicine, massage therapy, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. They do have a Bloomington clinic, which is open to the public for natural health services for the whole family. I should also add that they have added on a telemedicine option for most of these services to better serve patients while we remain socially distanced in the foreseeable future. If you kind of want to get a taste of the content that we've produced in tandem with their fleet of experts, I highly encourage you to go to our website, Mpls.St.Paul, navigate over to the health and fitness tab. How's that, Sammy? And from there, you'll see sponsored posts, and those are the articles that we've built together with Northwestern Health Sciences University, from Ayurvedic medicine to how massage therapy treats mental health to how practitioners can tell so much about our health just by looking at our tongues and so on and so forth. So our Wellness Wednesday events are kind of like a jump off, like just a natural jump off from this content that we've produced, where we get to take these topics that we've covered before in editorial, but it's kind of more beneath the surface, like today's naturopathic guide to supplements and vitamins. And then we get to dig a little bit deeper in real time with these practitioners, asking them questions and learning more about how whole body health affects various facets of our lives. It is the stuff of legend, truly. So one last housekeeping item, you guys, be sure if you have any questions or comments along the way to drop that into the Q&A box. If you want to remain anonymous, if you really don't care, just drop it into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to get around to all of them. We can't make any promises, obviously. We have a lot to pack into 1 hour. So we'll open the floor for the last 15 minutes and do our best to tackle most of your comments and questions. So fasten your seatbelts and get your notepads ready. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you all. I have the great privilege of introducing you all to Dr. Amrit. Devgun, she is a naturopathic doctor and applied Ayurvedic practitioner with the university. You can find her bio and contact information on the Wellness Wednesday webpage. I believe that's mspmeg.com/ww, where you saw the link to register for our class today. So Amrit, my friend, I think you're still muted.
All right, unmute. There
we go.
Good?
Yep. So before we dive in, can you just share a couple of sentences about who you are, what you do, the disciplines that you teach, and what you're here to talk to us about today?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a naturopathic doctor at the Bloomington Clinic with Northwestern Health Sciences University. And I've been in practice, kind of a family practice focus for over 25 years. I went to the Naturopathic College in Canada, and that's where I grew up. And then I started my practice here. And I then, at some point, I added Ayurvedic medicine, which is Eastern medicine. It has a very, I'm going to say, time-tested philosophy. It's based on time-tested philosophy, and the time span being anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 years. So that's pretty good as far as time testing. And so in my practice, I educate patients on lifestyle. That's a big piece for me, is lifestyle. To teach people how they could look at their diet, how they could improve things, what they're doing well, looking at their other aspects of their lifestyle as far as stress management, some other issues that they may have on hand. And so as far as the type of conditions I see all sorts of different conditions, mainly chronic disease, because our modern medical system it does really well with acute illness, but with chronic illness, I think we just need a different model. And that's where a lot of the providers at Northwestern kind of excel at and shine at, is to look at chronic illness and look at, what's the underlying cause of some of this. And so we may do that, or at least I do that through different either lab tests, functional lab tests, or some of the regular lab tests that are done through a patient's primary care doc. Or it could be through looking at a person's tongue, as you mentioned, some of the information we get by looking at tongue, looking at nails, doing some facial diagnosis, looking at the quality of a person's hair as well. So many different tools we have to be able to get some clues. And these are all clues, so we don't look at just one of these and make a diagnosis. You look at all these and try to put a picture together. And I love what I do. And so today, I'm very excited to talk about what we can do to help improve, whether we want to say immune system or resilience, overall, stress management, and also to know that this, supplements have a place, definitely, but there's nothing that replaces food. Food as medicine. So I'm going to be throwing some of those things into our talk whenever I get an opportunity today.
Sounds good. Thank you, Amrit. So first things first, the title of our session today is A Naturopathic Guide to Vitamins and Supplements. I just kind of want to start with the basics before, we really launch in. And can you just share with our viewers what exactly, I think there's just a lot of confusion around this term, naturopathic. What does that mean? Exactly. I feel like it gets conflated a lot, and I'm one of the offenders with integrative health and natural health. Can you just briefly kind of touch on what some of those nuancy differences are?
Well, I guess, yeah, there are a lot of differences. Naturopathic medicine, I think, it started off as Well, see, I'm trying to figure out how to answer this question without making a whole talk about this, because I easily can do that. So naturopathic medicine is based on some basic principles, like, you don't want to just address the symptoms, you want to address the cause. So if someone comes in with fatigue, yeah, sure, we could give them some B vitamins, or we could, give them some kind of ginsengs to just help give them energy. But is that what the cause is? Or do they have an overgrowth of certain bacteria in their body that might be depleting their nutrients, or is their thyroid off? And so address the cause. And as you address the cause, you don't try to start with the least harmful approach. And so the least harmful would be Mother Nature. Start with diet, start with just different lifestyle techniques and modifications, and like I said, the stress management. And then if needed, we go in further. And one big aspect of naturopathic medicine is to allow this innate healing system of ours. We all have it. We all have an innate healing system. And to allow that innate healing system to be nurtured so that our innate system can guide us through its own wisdom towards wellness. And the way naturopathic doctors are educated today is different than what it was maybe 100 years ago. So there's a lot more functional medicine that's coming into play in naturopathic medicine. And functional medicine, as the term suggests, is looking at dis-ease maybe before it manifests clinically. And so those are those conditions where some people, you may have heard them say, I don't feel good, but I went to my doctor, they ran the tests, and nothing's abnormal. Everything is fine, but I don't feel fine. And so functional testing, we look at exactly that. What is the function of some of the different systems in our body versus just an absolute number of, the level of your, say, your hemoglobin just alone, or your white blood cells. So just look at the entire systems versus just one marker, a couple of different markers. So at this point now, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, is there a clear boundary between those? I think there is a gray area. And then integrative medicine, you may have some medical doctors who practice some I'm going to say more natural techniques, and they've had some training and fellowships in integrative medicine. So what they're trying to do is use what they learned at med school, and also try to bring in some of these other less invasive, I'm going to say more friendly, holistic approaches. And so that becomes integrative medicine. And so that's kind of, I think in a nutshell, how I could probably describe that and help to distinguish between these different professions.
Thanks, Amrit. That does. I feel like I need to carry like a mini glossary or a cheat sheet around with me. But what's interesting, and and we interact so often, us editors and the experts at Northwestern Health Sciences University, so we know kind of the latest that's coming out of there. And it does seem like we're definitely hitting this really major point in time where Eastern and Western medicine are starting to find kind of these touch points of compatibility. Bringing acupuncturists into the ER, massage therapists for cancer treatments. So it's really cool to finally see that, there are, like I said, there are points of compatibility with both fields or both practices or what have you. Yeah. Amrit, so vitamins and supplements, we're going to start here from the top. That's a really popular topic, mainly because there is so much conflicting information out there. I mean, the aisles at the grocery stores and the drug stores are just packed with various brands and various dosages. Yeah. You flip through a magazine or you see a bunch of blog posts online and it's like, don't take this, but take that. And then, the next article says, don't take that, take this instead. So it's really hard to know, what's what these days, especially when the aisle looks so much like the cereal box aisle. Like it's like too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? So there's so much variety to pull from. And that's, to the point where it's overwhelming to even innocently peer at the bottles at this point. I mean, I can't even touch it because it feels, it's not straightforward is what I'm trying to say. So that's where you come in, Amrit. And I'm going to start here with the first question that we received, and that is maintaining a robust immune system. And obviously that's more top of mind than ever. Can you share which vitamins or supplements we should be taking regularly to keep that sort of under control?
Okay. Yeah, I agree, Jamie. It is very, very confusing. And I think one of the other things with naturopathic medicine is our training. You know, we have had 4 years of our undergrad, and then we go ahead and do 4 years of the naturopathic training, where we are trained in, of course, again, the systems biology. We're trained in lab diagnosis, assessment, etc. In certain states, we are allowed to even do some minor surgery, and we're allowed to prescribe medications. Here in Minnesota, we can't do that right now, at least, but we're trained in all that. And so when we see a patient, you know, I often have a lot of patients that they come in with bagfuls of vitamins, and they say, Dr. Devgun, I don't know what to take. What should I be taking? And so that's where the training does come into play, and we are able to individualize and customize that person's needs. And so a lot of what I'm sure the questions that you will have today, a lot of how I might answer them is, well, it depends. It depends on a person's situation, right? There is no be all end all. Maybe just, maybe we could say water is for everybody, air is, you know, sunshine is. But when it comes to vitamins and minerals, I think we do have to make it very, very unique to us. You know, what is it? What's our diet like? What is the missing link in our diet or in our lifestyle? And we go for that. Some of us are able to really focus on the diet and also with the exercise and stress management, etc. But some of us may not be able to. And so that will determine doses as well, and the different forms as well. And so there is a place, though, for vitamins and minerals. You know, we have evolved from a place where we had such nutrient-dense foods. You know, our ancestors ate such nutrient-dense foods. They ate sitting down, believe it or not, right? Not standing in front of their computer desk and eating. They ate in a timely manner. They followed their circadian rhythms. So there's so many things that we were doing, and we're being pulled away from it. And then not to mention just the change in lifestyle, but the quality of our foods. You know, the soil quality, the toxins that are being dumped in it, all the medications that are being dumped into our waters, and all the other chemicals. And so the quality of our foods is not the same. And so we do have depleted soils. The animals that are grazing on that soil is also going to have a poorer quality outcome as well. And so for that reason, nutrients do come into play, vitamins and minerals. And there's a bunch of them that we can think about. What I typically think of would be, just as a basic list, it would be omega-3s, and it would be vitamin D, and then a multivitamin. And we could throw in probiotics if we want to. And then this slide here lists a lot more. So this slide here was generated by, this handout was generated by the Institute of Functional Medicine. And they came up with this when we all had, when COVID was introduced into our lives, COVID-19. And so you could see there's a bunch of different nutrients here. It doesn't mean you take all of them, but what common thing that you'll see, like with curcumin and quercetin as well, all of these different ones, is that they have some anti-inflammatory potential, but they also have an antioxidant potential. And I think the key is to help decrease inflammation in our body and decrease oxidative stress in our body in order to help promote longevity and quality of life. And so a lot of these nutrients will have that. But when you look at all of these different ones, you know, quercetin, for example, N-acetylcysteine, and zinc for that matter, you're going to see that these nutrients are available in multiple different foods. So supplements should not replace good, nice, broad spectrum diet. That I want to make sure everybody does here. When we look at some of these other ones on the second page, melatonin has been shown, most people know about it for sleep, that they feel like if they don't have sleep problems, they may not need melatonin. But melatonin is a great anti-inflammatory. And it also helps with immune response. We know that some people who are deficient in their melatonin may have an increased chance of getting the common cold. Elderberry green tea. So green tea, we know that too, wonderful anti-inflammatory properties, but also wonderful antioxidant properties. Green tea is something that I really highly recommend that people try to get in their diet, and it could help them cut down on coffee if they're drinking a lot of coffee a day. Coffee is not necessarily a bad thing as long as we take it in moderation. And everyone's definition of moderation may be different, so I'm going to make sure that I say, well, moderation, 8 ounces a day if you wanted to do some coffee. And resveratrol, there's a lot of talk about resveratrol. It's a wonderful antioxidant. Most people know about resveratrol in red wine, and that they justify their glass of red wine because they're trying to get their resveratrol. And that's great, but if you could get it through red grapes where you get the fiber too, the skin of the red grapes, and you get some of the other nutrients from the grapes as well, that would be great. Beta-glucans, medicinal mushrooms, beta-glucan is found in a lot of different medicinal mushrooms, or a lot of different mushrooms, I should say. And so a lot of wonderful studies coming out with the immune modulating effect of beta-glucans, and then also the medicinal mushrooms. The list goes on and on and on. But as I mentioned, omega-3s, vitamin D, a multivitamin, and then maybe throw in probiotics would be kind of the basic ones.
Amrit, a couple of things here. For one, I definitely drink coffee in moderation for sure. Okay. Like 3 cups a day.
I was going to ask your definition or mine.
I'm sure other people can relate. And I definitely don't drink I get how do you say it? Resveratrol. Yeah. So that's that. I definitely, don't drink red wine specifically for that, but all jokes aside, 2 things. One of our viewers wanted to know, Amrit, if there's a way that they can access that graph. Was that found? Can we get that on the website for functional? I forgot the name of the. Okay.
Yeah, for functional medicine, they have a resource on there just for consumers, and so you could certainly access that.
Okay, perfect. And my next question is, I know you said that we kind of have the green light when it comes to, the daily probiotic, the vitamin D, the omegas, the multivitamin, and so on and so forth. But do you still suggest that we go to our primary care, whoever our providers are, and ask them first before we just start taking one and kind of do the,
yeah,
just wherever my finger lands in the aisle, I take that bottle?
It is very overwhelming, right? There's a plethora of information on the internet, and not every site says the same thing. And so it's contradictory sometimes, a lot of times. And then there's the whole quality assurance as well of some of these different supplements. And then there's different forms for these. There's different forms, and if you're not taking the right form, well, that pill is just going right through into your stool. And so you've got expensive poop is what I call it then. And so I think it's always a good idea to go see a provider who works with nutritional supplementation and overall wellness, and takes either a functional medicine approach, naturopathic approach, integrative approach, whichever one you want to call it, and have them assess, because there's plenty of lab tests too that could be done to help assess which nutrients you might be deficient in, what your weaknesses are, because we all have our strengths and our weaknesses depending on whatever our genetic makeup is.
Sure.
It doesn't mean just because we've been given the genes, we're going to express those genes. We could silence them through healthy lifestyle. And the ones that are robust and work for us, the beneficial genes, we could help to enhance those too through a robust lifestyle and diet. So always the answer is yes. It would be a good idea to see a provider. But if you take probiotics and you take a basic one like 5 billion, is that going to hurt you? No, it's not going to. Now, vitamin D Vitamin D, you have to be careful with. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. And so with it being fat soluble, it could settle and sit in your system for longer. And so there's a chance that it can become, it can accumulate and become toxic if it goes beyond a certain point. And so that's where getting a lab test done for your vitamin D is always a good idea. Get your baseline done, get vitamin D, 25 hydroxy vitamin D test is what it would be. Get that done through your provider, and that'll give you an idea of where you're at and how much supplementation needs to take place.
Perfect. Amrit, really quick before we advance to the next question, there are quite a few questions that came funneling through about probiotics. That seems to be a really hot topic among our viewers for obvious reasons. They want to know the best time of day to take a probiotic, which I would like to know that as well. And if there are any good brands that you recommend or certain things to look for in a probiotic. I think you just said the 5 billion.
Yeah, that's a very, very low dose. Okay. But I was saying that, that dose is not going to hurt anybody. If someone were to go take 100 billion, I don't know if they necessarily need to do that, but they wouldn't need to do that just as a safe measure. So I wouldn't recommend high doses like that unless there's a reason, and that's very specific. But to answer the question, the probiotics and timing, it's kind of gone back and forth, but what I usually recommend is that you take it on an empty stomach. So that could either be first thing in the morning, a good 30 minutes plus before food, or at night. And at night before bed could be a good hour and a half to 2 hours after meals. And that way your stomach acid is not being stimulated, it's not going to kill off the probiotics, and you're more likely to benefit from it. So that's typically what I recommend. Perfect. And was there a second part of that question, or was that it? When to take them? Oh, what to look for in the probiotic, right?
Yep. Are there certain labels or dosages?
Yes. So I do have a couple of my favorites, and if it's okay, if it's okay there, then yeah, I think
we'd love to hear your pro tips.
Yeah, so there's one, it's made by Orthomolecular Medicine, and it's called Orthobiotic. And Orthobiotic has 20 billion colony-forming units in it, and it has a nice broad spectrum of different types. Probiotics, you don't necessarily want to just take the ones that just have one name on it or two names on it. Those ones are very specific for certain conditions. And so if there's a certain condition and you need to take a very specific probiotic, then that's a different situation. But for prevention, you want to try to have a broad spectrum. It's just like with the diet. We're not going to eat just broccoli. We want to make sure that we get the different nutrients through a broad spectrum diet. So same thing with probiotics. And so when there's, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus plantarum, Bifidobacterium, whatever it might be, a lot of different ones, Saccharomyces boulardii, great, that's wonderful. So when you have a good, maybe 6 to 8 of them on a label, that's great. And so Orthobiotic is the name of one that I like to use quite a bit. It's shelf stable, which makes it very easy to take when you travel as well, or if you need to keep it at work. So no refrigeration necessary. There's another company called Claire Labs that I like to use as well. Claire Labs has several different ones, and there's one that is called Therabiotic Complete. Therabiotic Complete has 25 billion. The other one had 20 billion, so comparable. And it also has multiple different strains in there. So that's another great one. Then I do recommend rotating your probiotics. It's always a good idea to do that. And I also suggest mixing in some spore-based ones as well versus the lactobacillus type species. So spore-based are soil-based organisms. They actually, you need a lower dose of those. They could propagate on their own, and they're much more similar. They are basically how Mother Nature would have them. And so there is a spore-based probiotic through Nutrition Dynamics. That's another one. So those are 3 different options.
Wonderful. One of our viewers, Audrey, she had a question. This kind of segues into question number 3 that we have, Amrit. She wants to know, can we take all of our supplements on an empty stomach? Or, should we be spacing them apart? Should we take them all at once, Amrit? And if so, can we take them on an empty stomach?
Right. Okay, good question. So the answer there is it's not a good idea to take everything all at once, and it depends on what those things are. And so some things are fat soluble, some are water soluble, some amino acids might fight one another to be absorbed. So it really does depend on what you're taking. And some things do well on an empty stomach. So probiotics, empty stomach is great. When you're taking fat soluble vitamins like vitamins A or D or E or vitamin K, they need to be taken with a meal that has good fat. And so you would want to take those with a meal. And when I say, I want to make sure you heard the good part, or the audience has heard the good part, the good fat. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that, if a person has French fries, well, that's a great time to take their vitamin D. So even when they're having their avocado, they're having their olives and olive oil, they're having some eggs, or they're having some other, like say coconut oil or coconut-based products, those would be good times to take some of those fat soluble vitamins. And the other thing is that we're not going to absorb 100% of our stuff. And so when we're inundating the body with a lot, especially when we're talking about prevention, right? When we're talking about just prevention and not addressing a certain situation, then we need to make sure that we're not giving the body a whole lot to chew on at one time. And so even though it's not food, the body still has to chew on it. It still has to break it down. It still has to absorb it. It still has to know what to do with it. So when there's just a bunch of different nutrients that are thrown into the body at one time, the body may just say, I don't know what to do. I'm just getting rid of them. It's too much. So it's a good idea to spread your nutrients out. B vitamins, they're stimulatory, so you may not want to take them through in the second part of the day. You want to take them in the beginning. And some other vitamins, if vitamins or minerals or even herbs, if you feel like, oh, anytime I take this, I have a feeling that disrupts my sleep. So you may want to take that earlier in the day. Herbs, generally, a lot of herbs are taken on an empty stomach, so they can be digested and they can get to work. But again, it is very dependent on what you're taking a specific herb for, what the action's supposed to be. Enzymes. Some people think that, yes, enzymes should always be taken with food. If you're taking a digestive enzyme, absolutely, you take it with your food. If you're taking an enzyme as a digestive aid for other things other than your digestive tract, so scar tissue or inflammation in the body, you take it without food. And so it really does depend on what we're talking about. So we can't just generally say that, yeah, you could take them all at once. It's not a good idea to do that, but we still can't even say that.
So does it or does it not defeat the purpose? Say that I'm on the go, I'm just leaving the house and it occurred to me that I haven't taken any of my vitamins or supplements and I just down them all at once so that I don't forget about it later. Should I just write that off? And
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
The tract is really nice and robust and healthy and they could handle it, and that's great.
Okay.
Ask yourself, when I take these vitamins all at once, do I feel queasy in the stomach? Do I just not feel right? Your body may be telling you that, give it to me in smaller doses.
Okay. That sounds good, Amrit. We have a really good question here, and this was actually one of the questions that we had on our preset list. This person wants to know, they've been taking vitamin D on the daily ever since, with the emergence of COVID, because we know that it is, a good fighter for the immune system. But how do we know if that's too much, taking it daily, or how would this person know if it's getting to the point where it's actually causing more harm than good and there are those levels of toxicity in the body?
Right. And that's where that lab test is really important. We have to do a lab test. You must do a lab test if you're on vitamin D. And, if you're only on, say, 400 IUs, 800 IUs, do you need to do a lab test? No, not really. But I've had one patient in particular that I can remember years ago. She was only on 1,000 IUs, and she went into toxic range. So something else was obviously going on in her body, and I've not had that since at such a low dose. But that was enough for me to think that, okay, you know what, we probably just need to do vitamin D testing, baseline test, if we're going to be on it. So it's a good idea to go and get that test done. You can go to your primary medical doctor and get it done. You can, if you're seeing another, whether you're seeing a naturopathic doctor or integrative provider, you could certainly get your vitamin D done through them. And it's a blood test. There are some labs that offer just a finger prick, a blood spot test. You could do it that way too. And some of those are kits that you could just get. They could be mailed to you versus having to go to a lab. So if some people are nervous about going to a lab right now, they could certainly have that kit sent to them at home and do a blood spot test.
Amrit, I skipped over Lauren's question. This is a really good one. This person wants to know, regarding forms of vitamins, what do you recommend? A vitamin that comes from raw vegetables, one that's organic, liquid, tablet, NSF certified? Like what is that criteria that you look for?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So generally speaking, my first go-to is going to be food as medicine. Let's do what we can there. And then again, depending on the state of a person's health, we'll need higher doses. And so there's only so much, again, broccoli. I don't know why I'm talking about broccoli today, but anyhow, so broccoli, there's only so much broccoli that we could eat. And so if I need them to get sulforaphane, I'm not going to be able to get them to take 4 cups of broccoli a day if they have, say, some fibrocystic breast tissue or some other issues, hormonal issues. And so that's where the supplements come in. Now, to answer the other part of that question, what form then, as far as a supplement? Liquid, powders, capsules, tablets? It does depend on what they're taking. And also it depends on their digestive fire, or what I call Agni. And so for some people who have very low digestive fire, it may be a good idea to take things in liquid form or powder form. So some of that pre-digestion is already done for you. Tablets or capsules, some of my patients, I do have them opening up capsules and putting them in a little bit of, say, applesauce or something to take it. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind. However, some of the targeted nutrition, some of the standardized extracts, they are the doses that we would need. They're not going to be available sometimes. There's just not going to be that availability in a liquid form or a powder form. So some of these things are just not available in those forms. So that'll also dictate what form you take it in. As far as a raw food versus a synthetic or man-made, I would synthetic, definitely stay away from. Raw food vitamins are, again, that's coming right from the food. It's great for some people who need higher doses. They're not going to necessarily get it from that because they'd have to take many, many different tablets to be able to get the dosage that they might need of, let's say, the fish oils or something. Or of B vitamins, that would be a better example. And so then they would have to go to a man-made one. And then the man-made ones, we want to make sure that the forms that are being used are the ones that mimic the forms that are used that are actually naturally made in the body. And so, for example, B12, we'd want to take a methylated form of B12, not necessarily a cobalamin, which is not a very safe form and healthy form for the body. And so there needs to be a little bit of knowledge about that. And that's where, like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, Jamie. And so when someone is working with a provider, then that's the provider's job, right? That's what they do. And so it's not as overwhelming for them. And so they can help you kind of navigate the sea of nutraceuticals.
Thank you, Amrit. I feel like we need to come up with some type of a cheat sheet for the website, what to take and when and which form. I think that would be, obviously in a very general sense, since we know that a lot of this is very tailored to the individual system, but I foresee a future Be Well post coming from this, for at least a few.
You're always thinking of problem solving. That's great.
You did, Amrit, you said something about certain individuals having digestive fire,
Mm-hmm.
and they're the ones, is it right that you said that they're the ones that should be taking the vitamins that are more liquid based?
So the ones who have a weak digestive fire. So
Weak
people,
digestive fire. Okay. That's new to me. And I'm not sure, how would somebody know if they have that or not, if they just have more
yeah,
digestive issues?
yeah, a lot of digestive issues. So one would just be appetite. Some people with a lower appetite have lower digestive fire. Some people who say that they have a lot of food sensitivities, that would also be most likely indicative of a lower digestive fire. And so it's just too much information for the GI tract to kind of break down and digest. And so people who may have, let's say, just a nervous tummy as well. That would be one that, you don't want to be putting a bunch of different supplements into your tummy if it's already a nervous tummy, butterflies in the stomach all the time, that just won't settle well. And so in that situation, actually, those people may want to take the supplements with their food versus on an empty stomach.
Okay.
Yeah.
That completely makes sense. There's a question, this is really interesting, and I have not heard it before, but one of our viewers wants to know, they've read somewhere that an apple core minus the seeds contains billions of probiotics. Is that something that you've heard, Amrit, or?
All foods, actually, all foods do. All foods do because they come from the soil.
Sure.
So there are probiotics. What these different foods have are prebiotics. Okay, and so this, I do want to touch on that actually, because probiotics, this has also come into our awareness recently, right, in recent years. Probiotics are the healthy bugs in our system, not just in our GI system. A lot of people think it's just the gut. We have skin microbiome, we have lung microbiome, we have GI microbiome. We've got different microbiomes throughout our body. And there's more of them than there are us. Okay, there's just one body, but there's many trillions and trillions of microbiome cells, and so organisms. And so there's a lot, and they're very good listeners. They listen to what you think. And so our microbiome could be affected by what we're thinking. They look at what we're eating. And so it's definitely affected by what we're eating. So if we're eating things that have certain fibers, those fibers are what are called prebiotics. And prebiotics are food for those probiotics. So it's not enough just to take a probiotic. We want to be able to populate the organisms inside our gut, inside our entire microbiome, so that they could just grow on their own and be nice and robust. And to do that, we need to make sure we feed them with these prebiotic foods. Artichoke, for example, very, very good. And these are not the only foods. All foods have their wisdom, I'm going to say. And so with apples and the pectin in that, the pectin, the fiber in the apples, feed a certain type of probiotic. When I mentioned artichoke, it's really tough for us. I mean, artichoke is very tough to eat. And the bacteria, though, they do a really, really good job of breaking it down. And so if you look at, if we look at the different foods, and as the slide shows, the different foods have these different phytonutrients. They've got the different colors in them. And so all these different colors actually feed specific bacteria, or good bacteria. And these good bacteria then have specific actions. And so reds, it's not just lycopene, as it shows here. It's not just lycopene that's in red food. But if we're going after lycopene, we look for those, the foods that are listed there. If we're looking for anthocyanins, we're going to look for some of the berries that are listed there. But that's what the beauty is of these different foods. So the apple and the apple core, it's going to have a lot more than just the quercetin. It's going to have prebiotics in there for the different microorganisms. And then, so there's red, but then we also have orange. And orange, we all hear about the beta carotene, of course, and the bioflavonoids. Here's an example. We take vitamin C in a capsule form. Oranges or grapefruit or lemon, any one of those that you pick, don't just have vitamin C. They also have the bioflavonoids in there. And bioflavonoids work together with the vitamin C to make sure that there's proper absorption. Okay. And so Mother Nature has packed a lot, not just one nutrient in a food. It's packed a bunch of different things. So that's why I started off with the talk saying that, you know, food is medicine. We got to always remember that. And then we have yellow foods and green foods. Yellow, green, they have so many different nutrients. And I'm going to ask you to guess, Jamie, what is the color that is missing in our standard American diet? What's the one that's in the least quantity? And I'm going to give you a hint. You haven't seen that color yet.
Blue?
Exactly.
Ah!
Yes, you got it. Yes.
Right.
Oh, excellent. So blue purple is one that is very, very low in our diet. So what I suggest is when you're shopping, I did this with my girls when they were growing up, in our shopping cart, we'd kind of divvy it up into the Roigabiv, you know, the colors of the rainbow. And so I'd ask them to go ahead and find something of whatever color. So they would go around looking for the different colors. And then we'd kind of look at the cart and say, okay, what color are we missing? And then they would say, oh, you know, okay, if it was purple or blue, okay, instead of getting green kale, should we pick up purple kale today instead? You know, and so so look at your different, look at the different colors on your plate. You don't have to have all of them in every meal, but throughout the day, make sure you have the different colors throughout the day. And it's not just colors that are in our food and in our, in our fruits and our vegetables. It's also the colors of the different legumes, beans and lentils and peas. There's many different colors there. You've got kidney beans that are red. You've got you've got mung beans that are green, the whole mung bean, and then you've got other beans that are black. And so look for those different colors. In not just fruits and vegetables, but in the rest of your produce or rest of your grocery cart. Spices, look at different spices and herbs. How can you get some of these different colors in there?
Okay, so in other words, shop the rainbow when you go to the grocery store.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
Perfect. We have a couple of more questions, Amrit. I'm not sure if we can get around to all of them, and I did want to talk to you about water, but maybe we'll save that for another time, because I know that you have thoughts about different times of day that we have water, when we can over drink.
Yeah, in a nutshell, Jamie, as far as water, I think you know, make sure that we're hydrating, and there should be a slide on water. If someone wants to look at that quick, they can. But basically, don't have water with your meals is the number one thing.
Don't have water with your meals.
Do not drink with your meals. Okay.
Don't drink anything.
Yeah, well, you're going to need a little bit of water to take your supplements, but a lot of times we start off with a big glass, you know, 18 to 20 ounces of water that has ice in it, and then we start drinking that. We're just basically shutting our digestive fire down. So we should drink at least, you know, 15 minutes before we eat. I prefer it even earlier than that, but if you kind of forget, then make that your goal to start off with, is make sure that before you eat, your water's in you 15 minutes before, just to hydrate the intestinal tract and make sure that we're going to be absorbing nutrients and stuff. So, but in a nutshell, don't drink water with your meals, more than just 4 to 6 ounces that you need to swallow your supplements. And then also don't drink cold ice water, you know, unless you have a heat stroke or something like that, but it should be room temperature, or warm water or hot. And sipping it throughout the day is the best way to drink water. And
okay.
On that note, take a sip.
Cheers. Amrit, there is one of our viewers wants to know, this is rooted in menopause, so this is pertaining to an age and stage type of question. This person wants to know if there are certain supplements to take for menopause symptoms, going on to saying that hot flashes, night sweats, and weight gain in places that they've never gained before. My doctor told me that working out would help with all the above, excuse me, but I do work out almost daily, and I'm wondering what else I can do for the symptoms.
So for hot flashes in particular, one simple thing, black cohosh is a supplement that can work really well for menopausal hot flashes.
How do you spell the?
COHOSH.
Thank you.
So Black Cohosh, at the clinic, we have this wonderful product called AMPM Menopause Formula. And I think we do. I'm just trying to think, did they stop? Okay. AMPM, or there may be a substitute for it. I have to recall now. With the whole COVID thing, I think some things changed with the supply chain. But anyhow, it's called AMPM Menopause Formula. It's made by Integrative Therapeutics. It's wonderful. 1 pill in the morning, 1 pill in the evening, and it can help significantly with hot flashes. So that's a formula. There's an Ayurvedic herb that I sometimes recommend called Shatavari, Shatvari. And that you could certainly try taking a couple of those tablets 1 to 2 times a day. There's another formula, Ayurvedic formula, that's just called Women's Support, and it helps with these transitional times in a similar kind of dose. So those are a couple things. Evening primrose can help a lot too with that. So there are hormonal supplements as well, but that I don't make any recommendations unless I know a person's history and I know that that might be the cause. But there certainly could be the need for hormonal supplementation.
Thank you, Amrit. And then I think it's 12:50. Well, wait, it's 12:51. Okay, sorry, my clocks are different times. My computer says 12:57. Does yours say 12:51, Amrit?
Mine does, yes, 12:51.
Okay. So we've got a little bit more time than I thought we had, which is great. Jennifer wants to know, she's heard a lot of people talking about college, and we've all heard people talking about college, and that's been kind of a big buzzy thing in that natural health space that went mainstream a couple years back. Do you have any thoughts, Amrit, on taking this daily? She goes on to say she works out 14 plus hours per week, drinks a daily protein shake in between workouts, and is curious about adding collagen to her shakes. Also, with this high volume of sports training, do you also think taking supplemental calcium is important? I'm 49 and a female.
Wow, Jennifer, good job. That's dedication. Where you're working out that much. So at that level of training, 14 plus hours a week of working out, you do need supplementation. That's a lot, you know, that you're asking the body a lot. There's a lot of breakdown, and then there's a lot of repair and building, which is the goal of the workouts probably. And so yes, the protein shake that you're doing, I would definitely think about collagen. A good way to know whether or not, it's a simple question you ask yourself. How do I feel after workouts? Do I have good recovery? Or am I aching? Am I in pain? And a lot of people think about no pain, no gain, that they must feel a lot of pain in order to have a good workout. Well, if it's taking you a long time to recover, you know, next day and the day after, and sometimes even into the third day, if you're just really feeling it, but then you get to the next workout the next day, or whichever it might be, every other day, that's telling you that your body is needing some supplementation of nutrition to help build the musculoskeletal system. And so collagen in that situation, I think is a good idea. And then as far as hydration, that's the other thing. Not just hydrating through water, but making sure you're hydrating what's called the intracellular volume. So the hydration level inside the cells. And that's not just about drinking water, but it's making sure we're putting our electrolytes back in. There's a nice product called Hydrate that Nutrition Dynamics makes, and it has a good it's a good electrolyte powder that you just mix. And creatine is something else that some people who are trying to build muscle may want to think about as well. As far as taking calcium supplementation with that level of training, I don't know about that necessarily. Magnesium is something I would definitely think about. If there's a lot of aches and pains, if you feel like there's a lot of recovery, it's a long recovery time, magnesium is very, very helpful, because that is one of the nutrients. I could have easily put that in my the list that I started off with. I easily could have added magnesium in there and some other vitamins too, but I was trying to keep it very short and manageable. But magnesium is one of those nutrients that we're highly deficient in our culture.
Amrit, on the cosmetic side of things, collagen obviously had a moment in the skincare industry. Is there any truth to that helping with aging? I don't know, giving us a more glowy complexion?
Yes, yes. And collagen, you're exactly right, Jamie. It is for, uh, so the collagen plays a huge role on the integrity of our skin, hair, and nails. And so that's another thing, if you look at the quality of your nails and you're looking at the quality of your hair, that might also give you an idea. And with your skin too, that am I low in collagen? Would I benefit from supplementing with that? MSM is something that comes in a cream form, and MSM is a great skin rejuvenator. So that could be part of someone's routine if they feel like they need to do something like that.
Kelly wants to know, this is a really good question, and it's something that I never considered before. How quickly, so say that we were kind of, sporadic with our supplement taking, and then we really get on the horn after, having the session today and ritually taking these vitamins and supplements. How quickly should we physically feel the benefits of them kind of taking effect? Are we looking at a couple of weeks? Are we looking at a couple of months?
Yeah.
Are we looking for signs of energy? What does that look like for us, Amrit?
Good question. So it does depend. It does depend. I told you I'd say this a lot. It depends. And so it depends on what you're taking and for what reason. And so if it's prevention and you don't really feel any, and you have good energy, you have good sleep, and you're doing well overall, you may not notice the difference because there's just a little bit to tweak. And so the body may not, you may not notice that for about 4 to 6 weeks or so. But for someone who is not in that place and they're actually actively working on some imbalance in the body, they could notice things pretty quickly. Probiotics, some people notice it within a day. They notice it with the first dose that they feel better. Their gut just says, it just feels better. And so it depends on what you're taking. I've had vitamin D. Some people take that and they say that their mood, it's shifted just like that. And whenever the days that they miss it, they know because their mood just kind of drops if they have seasonal affective disorder. And so it depends on the supplement that you're taking. B vitamins could be an immediate effect as well. You may feel a nice pickup from the B vitamins. Some people, they may feel a little overstimulated from the B vitamins. And so it depends on what you're taking.
Amrit, I would be remiss to not cover this because it's been asked a couple of times by our viewers today. I don't know how much we can really touch on this, but it deals with the insurance realm. Do most insurance companies, are they at the point where they're starting to cover the cost of naturopathic doctors? Or are we allowed to use our HSA dollars to purchase supplements and probiotics, or would you need a doctor's note? I don't know how comfortable you feel answering those questions, but they've been addressed a couple of times. So.
Okay, yeah, and rightfully so. It's expensive when you have to pay out of pocket. And it is frustrating. I know we pay so much in our monthly insurance, and it's insurance that we don't even use very much at all. It's other stuff that I'm spending money on for prevention, and that's not being covered. So here in the state of Minnesota, insurance does not cover naturopathic doctors, services under naturopathic doctors. And so, but in other states, I know that in let's say Washington State, insurance does cover NDs there. And so it is specific state to state. And so if there are listeners out there who are not from the state of Minnesota, you'd need to check with the state association and see. But here we are not covered by insurance, and it's not going to happen yet. One of the things that we're working on with legislation right now is trying to bring awareness, and Jamie, you touched on this, bringing awareness to the term naturopath and naturopathic doctors. And so I'm a naturopathic doctor, and the difference is the level of training that we receive. That's the biggest difference. We have that undergrad, and then we do another 4 years of the naturopathic training and anything beyond that. And so we're trying to actually just bring clarity to that first, so that insurance companies then, if that becomes the next step, know that if they see something coming through, a service provided by a naturopath versus a naturopathic doctor, they know what the difference is. And it doesn't mean one is better than the other. It's just to make sure we bring some clarity to some of these terms that are being used and thrown around. So as far as HSA dollars, you'd have to check with your insurance plans. I do work with my patients if they say, can you help me out here? Can you provide a letter? I'll do what I can, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be accepted. And so,
Amrit, we're going to be wrapping up here, but were there any final comments that you would like to leave with our guests today?
I'm happy to see the turnout. I'm glad that people are taking initiative in practicing prevention. And, I talk about the Magnificent Seven is how they're referred to. So you want to eat well, hydrate well, move well, sleep well, poop well, think well, and then live and let live well. Those things are the foundation. And from that foundation, then you build with your different vitamins and minerals. And so make sure that your foundation is solid as well, in addition to this. And when you do that, I think that it provides more clarity for you as a consumer to understand, oh, I get it. This is what I need. I don't need all these different things that every article I read, I don't need every vitamin and every supplement, because it does become very overwhelming. And so try to follow those Magnificent Seven the best you can, have that rainbow diet, and maybe take some of those basic supplements that I talked about, and continue learning, and consider maybe seeing a licensed provider so they could help guide you.
That sounds wonderful, Amrit. We covered so much in an hour. It feels very triumphant, and I mean, we could easily go into the next hour as well. You have so much to offer to our viewers, and I know that they benefited as much as I did from your knowledge. So thank you so much for coming and joining us and taking the time. Amrit is one of our very, very favorite. I mean, we don't pick favorites. Don't tell everyone else, but she's one of our favorites from Northwestern Health Sciences University. I know there were some questions that we didn't get around to answering. In the chat box, I did provide my email address. It's jkorf, Jkorf as in Frank, @mspmag.com. We'll do our best to addressing any of those or directing you to the proper resources. And if you missed, part of the session, obviously it runs over the lunch hour, so not everyone can make it for the full hour, or you want to hear something again, since Amrit gave us so much, we will be posting a recording of this webinar on the Wellness Wednesday page. It will take a couple of days because we also want to make sure that we include all of those wonderful resources that she provided, some of the slides. I know some of you want to know about the top seven, Amrit.
The Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven, thank you. So we'll have that in there as well. So when you go on the Wellness Wednesday page, check out, we have we have two topics. We've got one for April and one for slated for May. The one for April is, it's one of my absolute favorite topics. It's about sleep. We have so many questions about sleep. I'm a brand new mom. I don't know what that means anymore, to sleep. So we'll be covering that in kind of the Chinese medicine vein, talking about the organ body clocks, and make sure that you sign up for that. It's mspmag.com under the Health and Fitness tab, Wellness Wednesday. Again, thank you so much, Amrit, for taking the time with all of us today. We're so excited at the turnout that we had. So this has been a successful inaugural kickoff to the series. We also want to thank Northwestern Health Sciences University for sponsoring the Wellness Wednesday series. And again, make sure you guys join us next month, same time, same place. It'll be on April 21st, and we'll be covering all things sleep.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, and hope you get some sleep.
Thanks. Me too. Bye, everyone.